That's not a knife. That's a knife. Good evening, or good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the fourth episode of Monday Movies. I am Tom Gibbs of TGMA Productions, and I'm here once again with the infamous, legendary, and one-of-a-kind Stand Wilks.
I'll take that, I guess. Yeah, I'm Stan. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Today we're talking about Crocodile Dundee, which is a film that Gibbsy and I have very conflicting opinions on, so this will be a very interesting movie to start off with, won't it? I know this is a film you've seen quite a few times, am I right?
Yes, I think I've watched it about 2 weeks ago last time, and that would be my fifth time watching it overall.
Really?
Yeah, I the first time I saw it was when I was a lot younger, though, probably like 11 or 12, and so I've been gradually sort of rewatching it ever since then.
So how has it aged for you then? Because as a story, it's an interesting one, isn't it? How's the story changed for you as you've gotten older?
Yeah, when I sort of watched it the first time, I thought, oh, cool. It's an Australian wild man, and then he goes over to the city, and I found that quite a lot funnier when I was 11 or 12. But as I've sort of rewatched it as I've gotten older, I sort of appreciate it more for the use of music and how it uses music throughout the film, as well as the potential that could, or the potential relationship being explored by Mick Dundee and Sue Charlton.
Yes, the one thing I will concede is I think instantly we can tell who likes it and who doesn't. Gizzy kind of loves the movie, I don't. But one thing I will concede is I think the music is brilliant. There were so many memorable musical cues that just stood out to me. And they were almost so good, Gibsy, in my opinion, that they distracted me from the movie. And I started wondering and bobbing my head to the music and thinking, this is like an album. This is like an EP. This is so good.
Yeah, the music is probably one of my favourite points in the film. I do love the music because they use a lot of it was the film was made in Australia, and the music was also written by an Australian, and so he tried to use quite a lot of the sort of the cultural instruments that you find in Australia. So things like you've got the didge going through, the didgeridoo.
Love it.
But you've also got quite a lot of just wacky so you've got like the sort of the wooden sticks that sort of make that percussive sound going through. Gives you that sort of, it feels more native to Australia with that instrument choice.
So story-wise, Gibbsy, what actually happens in Crocodile Dundee? Because this is where I'll have to start raising my issues with it.
So the story is, it's an interesting story. A journalist in New York is shipped off to Australia when she hears about an interesting tale of a gentleman that had survived a crocodile attack. And so throughout the first half of the film, you see the gentleman himself, which is Crocodile Dundee, and Sue Charlton sort of walking about through the outback of Australia to sort of so that Sue can sort of take pictures and write notes on the incident, on the crocodile attack. They sort of build, you could say, is some form of a bond or a connection in some way. And then Mick Dundee gets asked to go back to New York with Sue. And so the second half of the film is spent with Mick Dundee essentially roaming around New York and trying to live a New York lifestyle, but as an Australian country gent.
It's absolute buffoonery. And this is where you and I will disagree, because I actually, from the first moment, the film starts to fall apart for me, because I find the setup so clunky of a phone call from Sydney saying, oh yeah, there's this guy who died who survived a crocodile attack, and I want to go and investigate, and this could be a good lead. It just felt so kind of such lazy screenwriting. I just felt as if there was probably a more subtle, clever way of introducing what the main plot point of the film was going to be. And then the Australian stuff for me, while interesting, purely from a landscape perspective, I just thought it was so bloody slow and kind of unfunny.
I can understand that in a way, because I will admit the pacing of the movie is not the fastest. Yeah. But I quite enjoyed the slow pacing in a weird way. I don't usually enjoy slow-paced movies that sort of drag out the main plot line. But this sort of gave you a few moments to sort of take in the wildlife that is surrounding Mick Dundee, and even elements in the beginning where you've got Mick, Sue, and Wally driving off into the outback,
Yeah.
where the cow sort of, or not the cow, but sort of I don't know if it's a wildebeest or a water buffalo that's in the road.
Oh yeah.
With Mick Dundee shouting, "Get out of the way, dopey!"
Yeah, that was kind of funny because it was just so situational, wasn't it? That he just happens to know how to meditate animals to sleep, which was kind of funny. But that moment doesn't really make sense to me, Gibbsy. Not to be too nitpicky. So he calms the beast down, but the beast is sitting right in the middle of the road, so they still can't drive through. So it feels like Mick Dundee has only exacerbated the situation.
Yeah, there are a couple of moments. I will admit it's not a perfect film. There are some things that I do have an issue with, and that was one of them I've got written down. That the cow, as you said, the cow is still in the middle of the road. So
yes,
if he'd sort of taken his hand and sort of led the cow sort of out towards the side, perhaps it would have made more sense from a story perspective.
Yes, exactly.
There are a couple of funny little things that I wanted to discuss in the movie. The first one is when they've spent their first night out in the wilderness, and it's the morning. You get that shot of Mick Dundee with the razor, sort of having a light shave, and then as Sue comes about, he sort of drops the razor, switches to his big knife, and just. And I thought, okay, that's him trying to make sort of an impression at the time on Sue, and you can see even just from that little scene that his feelings for Sue are sort of starting to build from there.
Yes, I will concede that it is a nice little moment, and it's kind of suggesting that maybe he is a fraud, that maybe he really didn't, encounter a crocodile and survive, because that's one of the threads that I was really interested in. Was they go on this journey, Gibbsy, don't they, across the Australian outback, mate, where they go in search of where Dundee was attacked by a crocodile. That's my best Australian accent I can do, guys.
It wasn't too bad.
I apologise in advance, but that's what I feel the film loses a little bit. That thread was so interesting, and I feel like just before the Australian segment is done, you didn't really get to find out exactly where he was attacked, and it kind of just loses that. And I thought, well, I've lost interest now. You were building to that, and it kind of went nowhere.
I think, in a way, the film stims, or not stims. It branches away from what Sue's original purpose was, which was to go and see the crocodile attack, and it sort of builds to the two of them forming some form of connection. I think that's highlighted a bit more when the first nighttime scene comes about, and where those city cowboys are running around shooting the guns, just like, oh yeah, mate, look at that one over there, go, out of that one, shoot those poor kangaroos. But then Mick Dundee is there hiding behind like a kangaroo. I don't know if it's a stuffed kangaroo or a kangaroo corpse.
It was very convenient, but yeah.
Yeah, and it just sort of, I looked at that and sort of thought, cool, that's quite a crafty comeback to this. But how dumb are those cowboys to think, crikey, that kangaroo's got a rifle?
yeah, that was very stupid, but kind of funny. That was the one joke for me that really landed, because I just thought this is completely ridiculous and nonsensical, but it is funny. It almost looked like a cardboard cutout of a kangaroo.
I can see that looking back on it now, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. I just thought this is really convenient but funny.
a bit two-dimensional.
Yes. But yeah, I do love the landscape of Australia, and I'm a massive Mad Max fan, so I do like seeing Australia on screen. It's such an interesting location to choose, isn't it? But I just can't forgive the storytelling of it. That's what gets in the way. And I think, for me personally, obviously I'm not criticising a film you enjoy at all, Gibbsy, but for me personally, I just find the film so horribly predictable. I could just go, okay, this beat's coming up, this is what's going to happen. When, what's her name again, Sue or something?
Yeah.
When she goes in, close, she approaches that little pond and decides to firstly fill up her bottle with still water, which is not the most hygienic thing to do, really.
No, not at all.
But I just instantly thought crocodile's going to jump out. Happens, Mick Dundee's going to save her. So I just thought, it's a bit predictable now. And that's where a comedy, for me, really fails, is when you know what the certain beats are going to be.
I think if the film had a bit more time spent in Australia and perhaps explored that, so and perhaps actually even you know, if the film took you to see where the attack was, and you see their sort of the moment between Mick and Sue where they where they kiss for the first time, and if that be towards the sort of the end of the story, and perhaps that be the sort of climax, if you will, I think that could have been a better way to go, instead of come back home with me to New York for the next half of the movie.
Even though they haven't really known each other for that long, it's a massive leap. And I don't know if you agree with this, Gibbsy, but I felt that the movie was clearly leaning towards this concept of someone from an outside world having to face a hard choice about where he wants to spend the rest of his life and who he wants to spend the rest of his life with. And I think it isn't really explored enough, to be honest, because that moment when he should decide, should he stay home or should he go to New York, it's so just kind of, right there, yeah, sure, mate, I'll come along to New York with you. It's just kind of so underdeveloped. And even the ending, it's just, oh, so they fall in love, I guess, even though there wasn't really many obstacles in the way. I don't know. I'm being very critical, Gibbsy, but yeah.
I think that you do make a good point about the sudden, the suddenness of the choice to go back to New York. I think if Mick was given that choice, and then for the next 15 minutes, or if there was perhaps a scene or two where he is, back at the pub, for instance, talking to Wally perhaps about this choice, and you could see Wally's reaction to it for the first time. I think that would be an interesting way of exploring the relationship between Wally and Mick, as well as what's just formed between Mick and Sue. And further expanding on what you mentioned about this whole, where do I want to spend my life and who with? In the outback with Wally still, or in New York with Sue.
In a way, this film should have been longer, or maybe shorter, but more to it, because it is really just two gigantic scenes, which I'm sure you'll agree with. Because I don't buy that Sue is an outsider in Australia, because we haven't seen her in her native New York, so there's nothing to compare and contrast that. So I just feel like she's just learning a little bit in Australia. You don't really, for me personally, I didn't really get the sense that she was new to that location, whereas because she spent so much time with Dundee in Australia, suddenly seeing him in New York is actually quite funny, because it's a world he isn't from, and so that's quite fun. I mean, my favourite scene in the film is actually where he gets so weirded out by all the human traffic in the streets that he suddenly decides to jump on a pole and hold on to it. It's such a weirdly executed moment, but it is kind of funny.
Yeah. The second half is I did enjoy the second half more than the first, I will admit. I mentioned when we were off air that I've got a somewhat sort of bias for these types of movies, where I typically enjoy the sort of fish out of water type movies a lot more than most others. But I thought it quite entertaining when you've got Mick Dundee walking through the streets. He raises his hat, good day.
Hi mate, and then, you alright?
Good day.
I really do feel like the fish out of water stuff is quite funny. Like the whole toilet scene where he doesn't really know if that's a dinger or something. Is it a dinger or something?
Yeah, I think. What was it? Someone's put two Johnnies in it or something like that. Not Johnnies, but
it's good stuff. It's good stuff, and because you really find it is easy to find it funny because he is completely out of his element and in a completely different world. But I just think, as a story, for me personally, it falls apart because it's just like a montage of gags in that second half. It's just here's a gag, here's a gag, here's a gag, and it never really flows together. Because then you bring back Sue's boyfriend that she apparently has, which was so kind of randomly thrown in and never really goes anywhere. Because I thought, all right, we've got a love triangle here. This is going to be the conflict, the finale of the film, where Sue has to either choose Dundee or him, and it doesn't really do that.
No, I will admit, no, it doesn't really take you on that that sort of trail. And I was almost questioning who Sue's boyfriend was towards that state. It wasn't until we got back to New York that I realised, oh yeah, there's this guy that's involved. And it's about 2/3 of the way through the film you realise, oh okay, his I think his father is like the CEO of this newspaper or something like that.
Yes.
And he's the son of the boss. And you think, okay, that's where he fits in, and that's how he actually relates to Sue in any way.
Yeah, it's mildly executed well. But my favourite part of the film, to be honest, Gibbsy, is where he starts to befriend two prostitutes, and that kind of goes in funny directions.
Oh yes, I'm just talking to these two lovely ladies.
Yeah, and then kicks the guy in the balls, which is kind of funny. Is he kicking in the balls or punching?
One of the two, but he goes full out on him. He doesn't hesitate because he's got no idea that those two are. I think he's just got no clue that that guy is the leader of a prostitution ring, or
Yes.
the head of it, the big man that you don't talk down to in that situation at all.
That's the stuff that's really lovely, is the kind of benign innocence of him as a character. That he's truly in a world that he just doesn't understand and will never fully grasp, and that's quite fun. There are so many lovely little segments to it, and I think another one is obviously where he gets a lift back from the police officer on the horse. Gives his knife back. Yeah. Just kind of funny. That was nice.
Watch out there, Dundee. Well, that's Australian. Sorry, that's American. Watch out there, Dundee.
Your accents are falling apart, dude.
They are. I'm all over the place, and I do apologise.
Oh, dude,
to those that are watching.
We're allowed to make mistakes, dude. But yeah, when it comes to the funny parts of the film, what are your favourite moments?
I think it would have to be where he's in the city, and where you see those that sort of routine of gags go about. And there's a couple of light-hearted moments in the beginning where he enters the bar for the first time. You see him on screen for the first time. He goes up to the bar, sort of 2 beers, one for me and one for me mate. Holds up the stuffed crocodile. And I thought, hey, that's quite light-hearted. That sort of made me smile.
That was decent.
But I think just as a comedy though, it could have made more jokes.
Yeah.
I mentioned before the main thing I quite like about it is the use of music. I mentioned before about the use of Australian and Aboriginal cultured instruments in the first half.
Yes.
But in the second half, you can really pick up on there's more electronic instruments used, and I really like that transition, and it really sort of amplifies the terrain that you're viewing the movie in. New York, you've got more modernized instruments. Australia, you've got the sort of more traditional ones.
It's a bloody good score. It really is, Gibbsy, isn't it? Because you can tell it's so well thought out and processed and can't speak now. Ingenious, you might say. Very ingenious. Very ingenious. But yeah, I think without that score, dude, I would probably find it one of the most boring films I've ever seen.
I think if the film score were written in a different way, I don't think I would have enjoyed the film that much, I will admit.
You'd agree, would you?
It's one of the things that I specifically enjoy about the film, and its use of music. Oh, we're not here to talk about music, though, are we? We're here to talk about films.
Dude, I think music is so important in film because let's say you have a moment in Robocop, which we've discussed previously, the drug shop, the rock shop raid. If that scene didn't have the music, it wouldn't work as well. And I think Dundee is the same. If you took the music out of Dundee, it wouldn't be as memorable. Aside from, what's his name? Who plays Dundee?
Paul Hogan.
Paul Hogan. Aside from Paul Hogan, and even the Australian actors, what did you think of the woman who plays Sue?
I thought that, so it's Linda Kozlowski, I think is the name of the actress that plays Sue.
Kozlowski.
Linda Kozlowski. They ended up actually getting together, those two actors and actresses. But I didn't feel that there was much chemistry between the two actors. I felt that the line delivery in places was a little bit mundane. But I don't know. I think that for the two characters on their own, I think they work quite nicely. But when the two come together, I think that's where, as I mentioned, there's a bit of a lack of chemistry between the two actors. And so when they meet and when they've got scenes together, I don't think it's as strong as it could be.
Yes, one of my favourite jokes as well, because I do think it is a funny film. I absolutely will concede that in places. Another great joke I really enjoy is where he asks the black limo driver, "What tribe are you from, Mac?" And this is horribly outdated, but kind of funny. And that guy later saves his ass when he's getting beaten up by the crooks, right, in the hall alleyway.
I think it's either him or the cab driver that he went to the pub with, one of the two. But I think it would be quite nice if the cab driver from earlier did sort of swoop in and come and take him home. That would be quite nice.
Yes, because speaking of people in the in smaller roles, you've got the guy who's the lobby boy outside of the hotel, right? And he
Yeah.
shares that moment with Dundee right at the end, which I thought was lovely, where they're doing impressions. But I just thought we haven't seen this at all in the film before this. It just felt kind of like, oh, this is a joke that probably was edited out of the movie earlier for pacing reasons. So you don't really get that sense of setup and payoff. It just kind of happens, and you go, wait, they had a relationship?
I will admit it, because they seemed quite awkward originally. You know, they sort of passed each other. The hotel chaperone, I believe that's what they call. I don't know how hotels work, but
Gibbsy, you have to go to a lot of hotels on your music gigs, right?
well, I need to have music gigs first.
He's roasted himself.
Oh, but yeah, you don't really see much conversation, or even you see a couple of glances at each other, but you don't really see them talking very much, and so it did seem a bit strange for it just to appear out of nowhere.
Yes. So we are coming to the end of our Crocodile Dundee episode, guys. Gibbsy, in a few words, how would you describe Dundee in summarization?
It works. It works with the music that's been provided. A little bit flawed with the story, but I still enjoy it.
Yeah, very fair play, good sir. Because I do love the score. I think the score's brilliant. That's the best part of the film. I just think the script needed a lot more work, and as a comedy, it isn't really as funny as it should be, but it does have a lot of lovely little moments here and there. And I do think Paul Hogan has a very kind of natural charisma on screen. And I haven't really said that in the review previously, but I do think that, definitely.
Excellent. Okay, that's a good note to end on then, I think, Stan.
Absolutely. So guys, that has been our episode on Crocodile Dundee. Let us know what you think of the film in the comments section below, because it is a very interesting film and it doesn't really get an awful lot of people talking about it. It's kind of gone under the radar, hasn't it, Gibbs?
I feel so, yeah. You see the character and a character's name and people will either know who he is or not. But yeah, I think more people should watch the film, and now that it's available on Netflix, I think it will start to attract a bigger audience.
Gibbsy, where can we find you?
So I'm most active on my YouTube channel, TGMA Productions. I'm sure Stan will put a link to it in the description down below. I'm active on Twitter every now and then, but I mainly just do music and audio related stuff on the channel. So you can check that out if you'd like.
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at Stand Wilks 10, where I just basically talk about movies and promote all of the work that we're doing together on Monday Movies. I've also got some short films, so check them out if you're interested, and obviously the previous episodes of Monday Movies, the new movie talk show. Guys, thank you so much for your time, and we will see you in the next episode.
Indeed. Take care, everybody.